Life. I'm Dean Wilson. I'm so glad you're with us wherever you are. We're so grateful for our local television viewers at TVSB. We're now on 4 to 5 p.m. Every weekday, and then on the weekends on Sunday afternoons at 4:30. Always brought to you by our good friends at Bunnin Chevrolet, and we're so grateful for them. So thank you if you're joining us locally. We love that local television audience that we're building. And then, of course, there's so many of you joining us around the world at goodlifetelevision.org, at our YouTube channel, social media platforms, and now on the podcast. Over the last year, we've seen that podcast audience continue to grow. So you can search for the podcast at Good Life Conversations is the name. So any of those podcast platforms, you can find us at Good Life Conversations, and we're just grateful. It's so fun. It's so enriching for us to be able to be here with you and talking about the good stuff and talking with some great people. And it's really been surprising to me, just kind of the gold mines that we discover and the people that are doing great things. And it's not mostly famous people on this program. But it's good people, and it's people that are doing great things and making a difference. And so we're grateful that you're along with us for this journey. Subscribe to the YouTube channel so you can get the most recent videos. They come out all the time. And so it's been really fun to see that audience grow. I'm really excited about my guest today, a good friend. We're in studio, by the way, today at TVSB, which is fun. And I'm joined by Mike Dutra. Welcome.
Welcome to me. I like that.
Yes. Well,
I'm not famous. So.
You're not famous? You're about to be.
Okay, great.
Mike has been a business owner. He's a Rotarian. We're going to talk about that. He's got a heart for service. He and his wife Cindy have a blended family of 5, and their grandkids now in the picture. How's that working? The grandkid thing.
It's great because you can bring them, have a lot of fun with them, get them all sugared up, and then just dump them off. I wish it was reversed, where I was able to do this with my kids, but there was more responsibility involved.
There tends to be, yeah, there tends to be. Let's go back to growing up in Venice. You were considered an at-risk kid, whatever, kind of however that's defined these days, but back then. So take us back to Venice growing up and kind of what your early life was like.
Sure. So my earliest memories was of my mom and my sister. My dad really wasn't in the picture too much. And when he was very abusive. And that was always, being a kid, you just never understood why your dad would be sort of abusive towards you. You thought your parents loved you and such. So dealing with that, it got to a point where my mom had to, divorce him. And it was interesting because I think back now on my childhood days, and having to bike to school. I could never see my kids biking to school the distance that I used to. We lived on one side of Lincoln Boulevard, and it was predominantly Hispanic and black. And the consensus was that if I went to that high school, I'd get beat up all the time. So I had to go to the other side of the street and ride my bike to a school called Walgrove. And so it was just different times, and you just go through that experience with that. And then my mom decided that, I needed more mentorship in my life. So she got me involved with this program called the DAPS, Deputy Auxiliary Police. And it was almost like a Big Brothers, where a officer would, be your big brother. And it was really neat because these people, they had families and such, but they were still taking time out for us kids. So, they took me to my first Dodger game. I remember always listening to the Dodgers on my little transistor radio. And when I went to the game, it was as green and blue as Vin Scully always pictured it in his, you know, when he announced the game. So, you know, I look back at people like that. I look back at a baseball coach that I had. His name was Manny, and Manny was a gardener, and he had 4 kids, and he knew that my mom had to work late most of the time. So I'd go to the baseball practice, and then he'd look at me, and no parent was there to sort of pick me up. So he said, "Here, store your bike," and then took me to his apartment where he lived, and he lived in a 2-bedroom apartment, which was odd to me because we lived in a house and we had 3 people, and he was in an apartment and they had 6 people.
Right.
But they were happy and content, and he was just a real joy to, you know, he was always patting me on the back, great job. And so I had people like that. And then the Boys and Girls Club was pretty amazing. It was sort of, I'd jump on the bus and go from Venice to Santa Monica. We didn't have a Boys and Girls Club in Venice. And it was just a way to keep away from hanging out on the streets and such. So, you know, I really had a lot of mentorship. I learned a lot from other fathers, some good, some bad. And, you know, that sort of brought me to a point when I was graduating high school where I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And, but something deep inside me said my main purpose is to be a better dad than my dad. And that sort of guided me throughout my life.
Yeah, wow. So you had an experience of people like Manny kind of standing in the gap, stepping in.
Exactly.
In a role in your life.
Yeah, Manny, an officer, his name was Gary Garrison. He was just a single guy, lived on his boat, just really cool and chill. And they would gather us not only for Dodger games, but I remember seeing the Rams. They took us out dirtbag riding. And this was my experience with adult males at the time.
Right.
And showing me, you know, things that my mom could never do for me.
Right.
So it was really cool.
I think that's so powerful. I mean, I don't think we always understand the full power and influence that we have as men when you step in the life of a young person.
Exactly.
I mean, we may not know, you know, I don't know, maybe Manny knows now, but, you know, so, and he's, you know, it's coaches, teachers, but it could be anybody. I mean, who's willing to say, hey, let me help out.
No, and that's why my passion, especially, you know, with what I'm doing now in the service with Rotary, is really youth and giving youth some guidance and mentorship, because I went through a lot of their situations, but knowing that they can talk to an adult or be guided by adult mentors to help them through situations maybe their parents, they don't feel comfortable with their parents and teachers dealing with.
Yeah.
So if I can, you know, help in any way and do something and just give them some tidbit of advice, you know, that's sort of my purpose now.
Yeah. How did you first get involved with Rotary?
Well, it was selfish because I had purchased a business that I had worked for about 18 years. And I purchased this business, and we were located in Playa Vista, and we lived in Newbury Park. So the owner wanted to sell off a part of the business, and I said, well, I'll buy it from you, because really work is I enjoy what I do, but work is just a means in life. It's a means to provide for your family, provide a house and food and you know, somewhat comfort stuff. It never was the end all that I see. I wasn't had this big career, you know, and that wasn't really pushing me. So I purchased the business, and a couple of years afterwards, I was just really burned out on the drive. Driving down to Playa Vista. So we moved the business to Westlake Village. And I remember one of my business mentors always telling me, you know, get involved with the chamber, get involved with the service club, and get involved with your church or synagogue. So I took him up on that advice, and I got involved with Rotary, and it was purely to help my business and, you know, network my business and such. But I drank the Kool-Aid, and now it's completely different. It's like a 180.
Yeah.
So now I'm more about Rotary and less about business.
I see. Yeah. So they hooked you.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you know, service. It's amazing what service does with in terms of changing your perspective. I feel like, you know.
It makes you grateful, and I think, you know, for me, you know, I'm really grateful. And if something would happen to me today and I was gone, I've lived a great life.
Yeah.
You know, and especially in the circumstance that I'm in right now with my family. You know, my 3 kids are all self-sufficient, and they're in their early 30s. So, you know, I'm super glad for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Off the payroll.
Yeah. It's
And
not as easy as you think.
No,
Yeah.
not at all. But
Yeah.
you know, that's the whole. You know, I'm just sort of seeing what the bigger purpose is.
Yeah.
You know, with helping people and seeing what we do with Rotary to help people locally and worldwide. So
Yeah.
that has definitely become my passion, and that's why. You know, slowly moving from, you know, working to more Rotary service and stuff. So, you know, hopefully I got 20 good years left, and I can use those years to help others. And I think that, to me, is my purpose here, is make this place a little bit better before I leave.
Yeah. Well, you're doing it. It turns out it's not about us.
No.
Go figure. Yeah, it just seems like guys, you know, we're on this thing, or gals, we're on this kind of trajectory towards getting all these things done. Mm-hmm. And somebody wrote a book about, you know, the second half, and about the kind of the transition from success to significance. Mm-hmm. You know, because it just seems like at a certain point you're kind of like, okay, I got there. Now what?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Which I think is an interesting question. And I think it just seems like the more people that I meet and talk to, that tends to be a part of the process. Is number one, it's not about us, not about me.
Right.
It turns out. And what can I do that really is going to leave an impact? It's going to, you know, help somebody else, help that kid like you.
Yeah.
The kid that doesn't have a dad in the picture in Venice, California.
Right.
And I could step in and invite him over for dinner, and he's still talking about that 50 years later. I mean, think of that.
Yeah, it's
That's
impactful.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You know? So talk about that. So talk about in terms of, obviously, Rotary, but this next chapter for you. Do you have thoughts? Do you have dreams? Do you have ideas? Or what are you thinking going into this next
Well,
chapter?
my wife has a lot of ideas.
Yeah.
Traveling.
Yeah.
A lot of traveling, a lot of golf. And those will be part of it. But for me, when I first became president of our Rotary Club in Westlake Village, I explained to people what my why was and why I was part of the Rotary. Mm-hmm. So not only was it what happened to me in my, you know, my younger years in Venice, but it was also bringing my why to what happened to our family. You know, when I had 3 kids that were 7 and under, and my wife at the time had some sort of depression and was over-medicating, and all of a sudden I got a call from Child Services saying, we're going to take your kids away. And I'm like, oh no. And I had no idea. You know, everyone likes to party and have a drink and stuff, but this got to another level. So I had to rush home, and we had Child Services involved with our life for about a year. We sent her immediately to a rehab center, and then another rehab center, and then another rehab center. So basically, during this time, I had to work. So I reached out to our preschool teacher to see if she can help out, and she was wonderful. I reached out to the YMCA, and I said, listen, I can't afford to have 3 kids in after school care or whatever. And they just, turned to me and they said, listen, we'll do whatever we can for you.
Wow.
And I was just so taken back by their generosity that now I'm still a big part of the Y, and it's really
Isn't that
helped.
amazing?
Yeah, so, and then we also had, family members that helped out and a lot of friends. And I think for me, and what I try to explain to people, if there's things that you need help with, reach out.
Yeah.
Don't try to have them building up inside. We did have some people that sort of ostracized us because of the fact that their mom was a drug addict, and so they didn't have their kids play with my kids. But for the most part, I opened up to a lot of people helped out, and that's the whole thing about community.
Right,
And that's
right.
how we need to bond together and help each other out, because you never know who, if it's your neighbor or
No.
something that might be having some issues.
Right.
And if they're hiding them, you'll never know how to help them.
Right. And that's the thing about some of the drug stuff, is it's more easily sometimes hideable.
Yeah,
Especially in this, I think 108,000 people overdosed in 2021.
wow.
And I was just reading about that thinking, there's kind of like this quiet desperation. There's this issue that you're right, if it's not talked about. I mean, I'm kind of a believer in let's talk about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's the terrible thing is if you bury it and you're in isolation,
Exactly.
and then it just kills you.
Yep.
But so anyway, that's another topic. But how did you get through? How did you make it through that? I mean, you've had a couple of journeys here.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just support from other people, and that's it. I
Yeah.
mean, I reached out to a lot of people, for help. I know my kids, it's funny, I talk to them now, and my kids are like the 3 little pigs. They're all different, completely different. But they all turned out okay, and better than okay for, what I hear from other parents and
Yeah.
such.
Yeah, just relying on community in terms of getting through.
Community, and with helping out and reaching out with these issues. Some people, it's too prideful.
Yeah, right.
It's hey, and that's never been me. I don't care about myself and the perception. I'm just like, hey, if I can help you, I will. If I need help, I'm gonna ask.
Right. Yes, that's so good. And then Boys and Girls Club, these YMCA, these organizations that are around.
Right.
It's just amazing. Again, I sometimes think we take them for granted, or
Right.
even like a Rotary. I mean, I think sometimes we just take it for granted, but then realizing we do need each other.
Right.
And that was one of the things about COVID that was so striking, is that we found out what life was like without community.
Exactly.
It's like
some aspects it was great. It was like the freeways. You had nobody
Right.
on the freeway,
Right.
and you could go out and walk, and you didn't have to go into work so much and such. So there were some positives.
There
to
were.
it.
The isolation was not one of them.
No.
Yeah, and we're finding out now. I mean, I think about just how that's affected people.
No, especially our
long-term.
youth.
The young
Yeah.
people. I mean, it's not good, And so when you say, I mean, I think that's a great lesson you just said. Somebody who finds themselves either they're in a situation or they're married to somebody, and all of a sudden the chips are down and something's wrong.
Right.
Say it to somebody. Tell somebody, we're not okay over here.
Right.
I mean, and it sounds stupid, but it's harder than you think,
Sure.
because it is humbling.
No, it is.
You
And,
know.
and I think the path I was going back on was when I talked to my kids, I always told them that there's somebody that has it worse than you.
That's right.
And be fortunate for what you have. Be fortunate for the house and being able to play with your friends and the food and such. And I was having my oldest, his name's Cameron, and he's a very gifted kid. He's very artsy, which is not me at all. And so we sometimes have different conversations, but I do remember him telling me that the steadiness of how the kids grew up by always always going to church on Sunday. They're not religious. They have a belief, but they don't follow a particular religion anymore. But I was always take them to Mass every Sunday. Everyone at the church knew us. They got into these different programs, and so that stability of every Sunday we're going to go to church, and every Sunday we're going to have lunch. Yeah, it's creating that foundation for them. And then, I always tell parents when I go out and do different things with schools is you can't be the parent that has the guardrails this close. Your kids are never going to learn. You got to spread those out. You don't want them to fall off the side of the cliff, right? But let them bang the guardrails sometimes. Yeah, right. Let them experience some things, because that's how they're going to grow in the outside world. And what I'm seeing, especially in certain neighborhoods where we live, I mean, they're like super tight. Right. There's a one lane and you can't move at all because you got parents on both sides and telling the kids to do this. And, eventually they're going to flip and go right over. They
bubble wrap them.
Yeah, exactly.
They want to bubble wrap their kids.
And I just see that too often in our society now, where parents are so overprotective of their kids.
Right. We drank out of the hose. Remember that? We got the voice of Vince Scully and drinking out of the hose. That was Orange County, California for me.
Oh my gosh! I mean, when I used to, when I was 13, I was wearing Sears clothes. And those weren't the cool clothes going into school. Right. And when I got to middle school, it sort of was, everyone was wearing the hang tens and the jeans and all this. My mom couldn't afford it. Yeah. So I got a job working at a donut shop, making $1.25 an hour or whatever. But I had to ride my bike down Lincoln Boulevard every day to go to the donut shop to go clean up. And I can't tell you how many mirrors are missing off of people's cars by me just going too close to them. But now I go down there. My son lives, my middle son, he lives down in Marina del Rey. And I look at Lincoln Boulevard, I was like, oh my God, I'm lucky to be alive.
Right. The things we did.
It's just different things. And, and that was one thing that I always appreciated with my mom. She always let me, she knew I was responsible enough not to get into too much trouble. Yeah. I'd get into some, but for the most part, she's always like very letting me out and give me a left line to, make my own decisions and be responsible at a certain age. So
yeah, what do they say? We want to prepare the path for our children. Mm-hmm. When we should be preparing our children for the path.
Exactly.
I think there's, I obviously nobody wishes for a kid to go through what you went through at all, or a lot of other stories. But I think there is something about, in this world where, we spent 10 years in Texas. We came up here, and my now 17 or 16-year-old son, he's like, Dad, kids are kind of soft in California. I said, yeah, you think, but I think we've gotten a little soft in terms of and again, not wishing ill or suffering on anyone. However, life is kind of tough.
Yeah, I mean,
welcome to the world.
Oh yeah, exactly. And, we need to understand that with our kids. And I remember with my kids when they did their high school or their projects at school, it's just like, I'll give you some guidance, but you're doing your project. And then you go there and you see these phenomenal projects and everything is, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, no, you didn't do that. Right. Your mom did that. Right. And people would be looking at me like, well, we gave them a little help. It's like, no, you did.
Sure you did.
You did the whole project, basically.
Right. I know one thing about this project, son. I'm not doing it.
Right.
This is your project.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So, and I know, my thing is with myself and my kids, and we have a healthy relationship. where we're able to talk to each other. We don't really see each other too much. I see my stepkids way more than, because my daughter lives in San Francisco, my son lives in Pasadena, so we'll see each other a couple of times a year and such. My only, thing was I just wanted to be a better dad than my dad.
Yeah.
And so the
Mission accomplished.
so that was here. I didn't have too far to go there. And I tell my kids, when you become a parent, take the good things that I've done and then take the bad things that I've done, or the not so great things, and, apply them to your parenting.
Yeah.
And when I go out and I talk to kids at our youth groups like Interact and such, I tell them that the only person that can really make a difference in your life is you.
Yeah.
You have to want that will to make a difference, with what's happening. And, your parents can help you, your teachers can help you, but it's all about you.
Yeah.
With how you're going
Choices.
to, the choices that
Yeah.
you make in life.
Yeah.
And, when my dad died, it was interesting because I was coaching my boys in hockey, and my sister called me up and she was crying, Dad's dead. I go, all right, I'll give you a call after, the hockey game. It was like, I have no relationship with this guy or whatever. But it was neat because afterwards, I developed a relationship with our family from Massachusetts, and I found out that he was abused, that his mom would abuse him and put out the cigarettes on him and do all these abusive things to him. And so he really only knew one way to parent. So I think that the greatest thing that I've sort of achieved as being an adult is realizing that I had these angers in me.
Mm-hmm.
So I got some counseling from people, but to be able to forgive, be able to forgive, I pray for him, that, he's at peace, and whatever. And I hear from my cousins of the abuse that he went through. And, it was basically the same abuse, the physical abuse and the mental abuse that he did to myself and my mom. But be able to understand that he wasn't able to break that cycle.
Yeah.
I firmly believe that I broke the cycle, and I'll be able to, see my kids be good people and good parents, down the road.
Wow. That's so powerful. Isn't that amazing? I mean, you don't
No.
think about that, but I mean,
Forgiveness is so many people, they hold on to things, and I see the anger in them, and it's just like, just let it go.
Yeah.
I mean, because all you do, when you
killing
hold
you.
that in you,
Yeah.
that's hurting you.
That's right.
It's not hurting the other person.
That's
that
right.
hurt
They don't even know about it.
No.
Yeah, they're not thinking
No,
about it.
you have
Yeah.
to just, I forgive you,
Yeah.
and even with my ex-wife, and, unfortunately, she's got some mental issues and such with the drug abuse. I have no ill will. I wish her the best. I wish she would get married so I can stop paying alimony.
Right.
But, for the most part, I see the burden now of her on my children because her family's sort of given up on her. So, but I tell my kids I can't really get involved, but I hold no ill will, and whatever I can do to help you, let me know.
Yeah. That's so
So,
great. Man, what a guy you are.
Oh, yeah. I'm just, I've just learned from my experiences. I've made a lot of mistakes in my life. And if you learn from your experiences and you try to pass that on so other people don't make the same mistakes, I told my kids if there were cell phones back in the day, oh, good God.
Yeah, is that right? We have no
but-
pictures.
No,
There's no evidence.
there's no evidence.
There's no evidence. Yeah, that's the good news.
There's no evidence.
Yeah. Thank God for that.
Yeah, but it's just trying to. We have a purpose here to make this place a little bit better place than you left it, and that's sort of my underlying theme that I've been having for quite a time now, but now I'm able to, in a place in my life right now, and COVID helped with this too. It made me realize how vulnerable we were.
Yeah.
You know, that we can go anytime.
Yep.
And so that's what made me really start realigning my life, less work, more service, and spending more quality time with our family and friends. So.
Yeah, that's so good. Great perspective. So I think Cindy married well. I don't know if you're watching. That's my opinion.
Oh, God.
I don't know him as well as you, but.
No, Cindy she's amazing. And it's interesting because she's, you know, does home health and nursing and stuff like that. And we do this program called Meals on Wheels.
Oh, yeah.
So we go out to the people's homes and bring them. So usually it's just dump and go. But not Cindy. She'll stay there, talk to the people, how are you? And usually it's the only person that they'll talk to for the whole week.
Wow.
And some of these people, they get gabby, and so we're there for like TikTok, you know.
Right.
You know, we've been here for half an hour.
Right.
But I see her and how genuinely beautiful she is inside.
Yeah.
You know, with how caring she is with people and such.
Yeah.
So it's really neat, and we have a great relationship.
Yeah, that's maybe the secret to your success, our success, is the voice of Vin Scully growing up.
Exactly.
You know?
Well,
talk about the greatest thing, the greatest sound known to man was the voice of Vin Scully on a summer night. My dad's sitting over there. But we've talked about this. Like, I can't remember a summer night without the voice of Vin Scully in my bedroom, you know?
No, I had the little orange transistor radio.
My dad. He had one. He still brings, we'll be at a baseball game for one of my sons, and my dad will bring, I think he has the last one. Really? He'll bring his radio out there. I'm like, Dad, what do you do with the radio? It's like, he'll turn it on. And now, unfortunately, Vinny's gone. But we.
Well, for me, it was a respite because after usually getting hit by my dad or whatever, I'd go into my bed and I'd just bring my transistor radio and always listen to the Dodgers versus the Giants, and always, you know, made me soothe me that there's something better out there.
Yeah.
You know, and this gentleman who he just had such a beautiful voice, and he can describe so many different things.
Yeah.
And it was wonderful because Mr. Scully went to our church in Westlake Village.
Oh, did he?
And I was able to talk to him one day, and I said, you know, you got me through a lot of hard nights.
Oh.
And, you know.
Wow. What did he say?
He said, well, you know, no, son, you know, I'm just doing my job. And he was just super humble and just a neat guy. And, you know, he was always cordial to everyone. You know, you don't want to go up there and sign my autographs or anything at church, you know. Hey, pass the basket. Can you sign my autograph?
Right.
But he was just the nicest person.
That's
and
so great.
yeah, and when I mentioned that to him, he just, you know, I'm sure he gets like a million of those things. You know, hey, you were such a big part of my life, which he was for, you know, in the 60s and the 70s to our generation.
Yeah.
So.
Sometimes people don't understand that. I'm like, you have no idea. Like, you know, you meet somebody like that, you feel like it's your best friend.
Oh, yeah.
And he's there looking at you like, this, call security, you know?
No, I mean,
who's this
he's
guy?
there every night talking to you like you're a member of his family.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. We covered a lot of ground. We've been out of time for a while. But hey, Mike, this has been really special. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Service.
I appreciate it.
Forgiveness. The voice of Vin Scully. I don't know if it gets much better.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time.